Pawan Luthra is the CEO of Indian Link Media Group. He received an apology from Ms Price's colleague, the Shadow Attorney General, Julian Leeser.
I want to say unreservedly that I apologise for the remarks that were made by Jacinta Price this week.
Why can't we get Senator Price to apologise? She's walked them back, but she's not apologised, has she?
Well, I am saying this on my behalf as the federal member for Barara, as the co-chair of the Parliamentary Friends of India, as someone who has got a very long-term friendship with the Indian community, that I'm sorry for any offence that those comments have caused.
And Pawan Luthra joins us now in the studio. Very good to see you, Pawan. Thank you so much
for
coming in. We appreciate it. What's your view of what Senator Price has said?
Look, rather silly if they were not so sinister. Silly because migrants come to Australia and then learn about the political system rather than having a detailed analysis of the political parties upon applying for the migration. They start as temporary migrants and then they become permanent residents and then they become citizens and then they're allowed to vote, and the whole process can take up to 5 years. And political parties of all colours and hues have 5 years to woo their vote. Now, looking at the Indian migrants, they're coming from a country which is currently ruled by the conservative BJP, and their natural inclination would be to vote for the coalition, but then the coalition has to work very hard to lose their vote, which they did in the last election. But then so did the coalition lose the vote of 5.4 million other Australians, and they lost the vote. The anti-Indian sentiments are sinister because she has put a target on the back of the Indian Australians. The community was already feeling very vulnerable, thanks to being called out in the anti-migration flyers. And Senator Price's comments are just a dog whistle to the fringe elements in the Australian community to pick them out. Yes, this could have been diffused by a simple apology from her, but this has been caught up in politics. Labour has seen an opportunity to push a wedge in politics. They want to test the new leader, Susan Lee. And we've already seen some fault lines which have started to emerge, and we've seen the ongoing saga between Alex Hawke and Jacinta Price and Susan Lee and Julian Leeser. We're already seeing some deepening fractures. And in all this melee, the Indian-Australian community is a scapegoat. Finally, I would like to ask Senator Price, do you truly have so little faith in Australia's electoral processes to suggest that Indian migrants were brought in by Labour purely to manipulate votes questions both their integrity and Australia's democratic legitimacy? This isn't just careless. You're casting suspicion on the whole community and undermining trust in national institutions.
As the opposition leader just said there, Jacinta Nampijinpa Price has walked back on her initial
comments. But she hasn't apologised.
She hasn't apologised, no. But have you reached out to her to ask her to?
Well, I believe that Indian media has reached out to her and she's not apologised. She's walked back, but that's not good enough. The community wants an apology so people can move forward on this issue rather than be bogged down in this debate where the Indians are brought here to vote specifically for the Labour Party.
What are your thoughts on how the opposition leader, Susan Lee, is handling this? Do you want her to ask Senator Price to apologise? I'm
sure there have been private conversations which we do not have access to, in which there would be some pressure being put on Senator Price to have an apology. But I believe that Senator Price would have her own agenda. She'll be dog whistling to a certain base of the coalition party to say that I will not back down. Yes, there are issues about migration. There are issues about migration from certain communities who are obviously far more visible on the front line. So I believe there's a deeper politics being played out over here. What I would like to happen is diffuse the situation, have an apology, let's move on. If I may say, I believe that last week opposition leader Susan Lee was having a good week where she had the government walk back on some aged care spaces, and she was having a good debate going on. I believe later this week she has to come out with a major economic statement. She's not getting any clear oxygen on this. So I feel for opposition leader Lee, but I think it's a pretty hard case for her to prosecute to get Senator Price to apologise.
And we heard that apology from Julian Leeser to you a short time ago. What was your reaction to that? Were you happy with that, or do you want more?
Look, I think Julian Leeser is a wonderful gentleman, a thorough gentleman. I followed his career over the years, his work in the Indigenous debate issue. I believe that his apology came from the heart. But again, it's not an apology from Senator Price. I would have preferred to have an apology directly from Senator Price.
You've made the comment that we don't have a migration problem. You say we have a planning problem. What do you mean by that?
Well, if we look at the value of migration to Australia, they are the ones who are actually pushing the GDP up. If we look at what happened around the COVID times when migration was down, we found that the prices of goods and everything went up. We had an inflation issue. Migration is good for an economy if it's handled correctly. If you look at the Indian migrants, we have about 10% of them working in healthcare sector. If we did not have these migrants, there would be a lot of pressure on all of us to take care of our elderly parents and the younger generation. We would also have, about 23% of the Indian Australians working in the finance sector, which adds value to our economy. Where we have is a problem that infrastructure has not been put into place, housing, social services, other infrastructure, and that's a failing of both governments during the COVID time, which was the coalition government, and the current Labour government is struggling to find a solution to this issue. So it's more a planning problem that none of these things were planned, and now there is a knee-jerk reaction of putting a pause on all kinds of migration, which I think will be disastrous for the economy, which is already suffering from low productivity, to have a big halt on migration. So my thinking is that we need to have an honest debate about migration numbers, what's good numbers of migrants to bring along, and then the politicians have to go out and talk up the value of migrations. What do migrations do for the economy, for the country? But so far, we haven't seen much of a ticker from either side of politics to address the issue of migration directly. There was, after the march on Sunday a week ago, for the first 3 days, there was a discussion about the neo-Nazis. After that, Senator Price has taken the headlines, but nobody's addressed the core issue. What is the right number of migrants to come into this country every year?
Just finally, if Jacinta Price doesn't apologise, if she digs her heels in, where do things go from here?
Well, I would say if she's not going to apologise, then there's not a lot anybody can do about it, except I do know the coalition is very keen to build bridges with the Indian community, as they have recently tried to build bridges with the Chinese community. I think it'll have a long-term impact on the coalition to get the votes from the Indian Australians, should there not be an apology forthcoming from Senator Price.
Pawan Luthra, good to see you. Thank you.
Thank you.